Let's do a serial dilution using test tubes. So what we're going to do here is we're going to have a starting factor of 50%. So what we have right here, we're going to do a starting factor of 50%. We're going to do a tenfold serial dilution. So we're going to have a 1 in 10 factor here. And let's just say we're going to ask ourselves, what is the concentration in tube 5? So first, let's figure out what tube 5 means. So remember our starting tube, which is going to be our first one. We said our starting factor was 50%. So this is tube number 1, okay? And then our next one that we have over here is going to be tube number 2, and then obviously number 3, 4, and then 5. So our question, what is the concentration in tube 5, is we're looking for the concentration in this tube here. Okay, now remembering when we're doing a serial dilution, we're going to be using this concentration from tube number 1, and we're going to take part of that and we're going to dilute it 1 in 10 and make this solution right here in test tube number 2. When we go to do another dilution of 1 in 10, we're going to use the volume from number 2 and dilute it again into number 3, and then obviously so on and so forth. So we're only using our original tube number 1 for our very first dilution. Okay, so you can see I've gone ahead and kind of represented that with some highlighting into these test tubes. So you can see that they get progressively lighter as we go towards the right and go towards tube number 5. So with tube number 1, we've got a really bright yellow, and then as we go on to number 2, slightly less, and so on and so forth. And that's because we're taking our dilution 1 in 10 and we're diluting each test tube so that we have a volume of 10. Okay, so we're diluting that 1 in 10. So let's figure out what that means in math terms. So if we remember that our original concentration times dilution is going to give us our new final concentration. So we said that we're going to do a 1 in 10, right? So we've got a 1 in 10 right here, and another 1 in 10 right here, and another 1 in 10 right here, and a 1 in 10 right here. So if we go with our dilution factors, 1 in 10 times 1 in 10 times 1 in 10 times 1 in 10. So we're doing this 4 times over. So we're doing a tenfold dilution 4 times on our original starting solution, okay? So what does 10 times 10 times 10 times 10 means? Let's just bring that all down here, and that's going to be a 1 in 10,000. 1 in 10,000 dilution. So if we did original concentration times our dilution equals our final concentration, so we can go 50 times, like our 50% times 1 in 10,000. Okay. So remember, as a whole number, this can be 50 over 1. So all we need to do is multiply that going over. So that's going to be 50 over 10, just like so. Okay, so then you go 50 divided by 10,000, and that's going to give us our new 0.005%. And we're keeping it as a percent because I didn't make our whole number of 50 into a decimal. I left it as a whole number and just carried it over. So 50 became 50 over 1 as a whole number, multiplied 1 over 10,000, giving us 50 over 10,000, and dividing 50 by 10,000, that gives us 0.005, and then percentage. Okay, so we shifted the decimal. Oh, sorry, I'm ignoring that part here. I'm not shifting the decimal yet. Okay, so our new concentration in this tube number 5 here, this final one, is 0.005%. Okay, Now, if I asked you what the concentration was in tube number 2 and in tube number 3 and in tube number 4, we could figure that out as well. So keeping in mind original concentration times dilution equals final concentration. So for tube number 2, we could say it's 50 over 1 times 1 over 10, right? So that gives us 50 divided by 10. So that gives us our new one here, which is, let's just use a different color here. This is now 5%, right? Because we said 50 over 10, which equals 5. So that brings us to here. Now, if we did, again, what is in number 3, do the same thing here. Now, don't make the mistake of going 50 again, times by 1 and 10, because we're going to take the solution that's in number 2. And we now know the solution that's in number 2 is a 5% solution. So then we go 5% times 1 in 10, right? So that equals 5 over 10. So you go 5 divided by 10, and that gives us our 0.5%. So now the solution in number 3 is a 0.5% solution. And again, we can figure out what it is in number 4. So we do 0.5% times 1 over 10, and that gives us 0.05%. So by knowing what a serial dilution means, we can actually figure out the concentration in each one of these tubes. So we started with a 50% solution and we dwindled it down all the way from 5 to 0.5 to 0.05, and finally the concentration in tube number 5, which is 0.005%. And there you have it.